well, here's a list I've been really looking forward to making, my top 10 favorite video game villains. In most games, there's typically an antagonist to fight against in the game, whoever it may be, and some villains are really good, so I'm here to count down my top 10 favorite villains. Just 4 rules to go over. First 2 are my usual 2. 1 per franchise, so we're not having a reunion of top 10 Mario villains. Second, only games I've played, so sorry, no Handsome Jack. Third, I'm not basing these on how iconic they are, because let's face it, that would be pretty predictable. It's just how much I like them. And last but not least, spoilers are all over the place, so be warned. Now with all that said, let's begin. Well, starting off the list, we have one of the main villains from Psychonauts, Dr. Loboto. Now, Dr. Loboto has a pretty interesting plan in the game. Essentially, he kidnaps psychic kids with his evil lungfish, then takes their brains out and uses them to power high-powered psychic death tanks. Oh, come on guys, this is Psychonauts. Did you really expect something normal from the villain? I think it's pretty clever that his name, Loboto, is short for lobotomy, and this guy really did make me laugh throughout the game. And overall manages to be both really cruel and really funny at the same time in some scenes. However, I do wish he was kind of in more of the game, and it really sucked that you didn't get to actually fight him. But overall, I find him to be a very good villain. Who knows, maybe he'll come back in Psychonauts 2. You know, if that ever happens. Like I said in top 10 Wii games, Okami is a truly amazing game. I guess I just didn't have more to say about it because so many people on the internet have already gushed about how good it is. But yeah, there are a lot of things that make Okami great. However, it's kinda hard to say that the villains are one of these things. They're not necessarily bad, but here's the thing. Well, sure, these guys have some pretty fun boss fights and some interesting plans. However, their personality and motives pretty much boil down to, "Rah, I am a dark demon of darkness. Now watch as I plunge the whole world into darkness. Blah!" It's really a villain type that I hate because of how unoriginal and unentertaining it is. Okami then actually fixed this and gave us 3 pretty interesting villains throughout the game. First is the main villain, Icarus, who has a pretty good plan and sort of a personality. Second, we have Bullhead, who is really funny, and then we have the villain on this list. And that villain is King Fury. Despite from hearing his name you thinking it's an alias for Fawful, he's completely different than that. Essentially, he's a demon, sort of possessed from a dead member of the Moon Tribe, and he vows to take revenge on humans. Why? Well, because of humans generally being bad people, you know, stealing from each other, killing each other, you know, pretty much all the evils in humanity. It's kind of interesting considering most of the demons in the Okami series are typically just trying to cause chaos or spread darkness, but this guy sort of thinks he's doing the right thing by killing humans. And I really like the scene with him and Kuro right before the fight, where Kuro, another member of the Moon Tribe, essentially points out that sure, humans do have some bad qualities, but they also have a lot of good qualities as well, which I honestly think was a pretty interesting scene. And at the end of it, King Fury's spirit is freed, and he apologizes for all the trouble that he caused everyone, and they send him off in style. Overall, I find King Fury to be a very original villain in a sea of not-so-original villains. Oh, Girahim, one of the villains of Skyward Sword, and a pretty good villain at that. Even some of the people who hate Skyward Sword have admitted to liking Girahim. And it's not hard to see why. This guy's a really entertaining villain. Essentially, whenever you see him, you never know what he's going to do next. He is unpredictable as heck. Whenever you see this guy, you know you're in for a treat. He's a ticking time bomb of evil, insanity, and charisma just waiting to go off at any moment. Overall, despite what people say, I still think Skyward Sword is a great game, and it's made even better when you get a bunch of scenes from this nutcase all the time. In case you guys haven't noticed by now, I'm not the biggest fan of The World Ends With You, and I've been pretty harsh towards it on my channel. I still don't like this game, but I do have to give credit where it's due. And that is that Sho Minimimoto is an awesome villain. I mean, when you first meet this guy, it's already apparent that he's got a couple of screws loose. He builds piles of trash in the middle of the streets to admire their beauty, and constantly speaks in math puns. Granted, I don't get all of them because I've never taken calculus or wherever you learn some of the stuff that he says, but even still, it's pretty entertaining. Another thing I like about this guy is that he's a rebel. After just a few days, he completely goes missing from the game administration, or I forget what it's called. Heck, even one of the tip-top workers flat out said that he excels in pretty much all capabilities with the exception of cooperation. He also has a pretty interesting plan. At one point in the game, it seems like he kills himself, but later in the game he returns and it turns out it was just a carefully calculated move to make him even more powerful. And then he proceeds to try to overthrow the game administration until he gets killed. You know, if you think about it, how much of a villain really is Sho Minimimoto? Granted, on one hand, he is definitely your enemy, and he does try to overthrow the game administration, but at the same time, you're trying to do that as well. Plus, he still would make a better person in charge than Joshua was. Overall, Sho Minimoto is a very entertaining villain, and if I'm ever going to remember anything positive about this game, it's going to be him. Okay, maybe this guy counts a bit more as an anti-hero, but I still really like Prince Vorkken. I know I've said in the past that I absolutely hate this guy's boss battles, and I still do, but I have to give credit where credit's due. He is a really good character. This guy actually serves as the perfect doppelganger for Wonder Red. While Red is a valiant hero and also energetic, Vorkken is much more calm and a very menacing villain. This guy essentially has his own team of space pirates that operate in the same way as the wonderful 100. And while his battles are difficult and not very enjoyable to me, they do show off that style, which I really like. Heck, just to show how evil he is, he actually killed a Geth Jerk officer who was sent to work with him merely because they had a disagreement about something. He don't always used to be like this though. He used to be a kind, fair prince who ruled over the planet Rulo. However, when the Geth Jerk attacked, his people got destroyed. Years later, he became Vorkken the Space Pirate, who took the strongest members of each planet from their home worlds and added them to his army of space pirates. Although I still don't get why he teamed up with the Geth Jerk. Seriously, wouldn't the guys who destroyed your homeworld be the last people you wanted to join? Okay, I guess it kinda makes sense. I guess he felt like joining the Geth Jerk was the only way he could still survive. After you beat him, he gets a severe telling off from Immorta and, to a lesser extent, Wonder Red. And then later in the game, he either snaps out of his brainwashing or realizes he doesn't have to serve the Geth Jerk anymore. I don't really know which one. But he ends up joining you and helping you throughout the final battle, which I really liked. Overall, Vorkken was an interesting villain with a good backstory and character arc, and that's why he's on this list. In the past, I've mentioned that LEGO City Undercover is an incredibly funny game, and it is, but there's another thing I forgot to mention, and that's that it also has a really good story, and that includes the villain of the game, Forrest Blackwell. First off, it's actually kept a secret throughout most of the game that he is the one pulling all the strings this whole time, and it's only a plot twist towards the end, which already there makes sense towards the beginning, as there are a lot of paparazzi people hounding him for answers because he's very secretive. The interesting thing about this guy is that you actually meet up with him twice before you find out that he's the bad guy, both driving him in a limo. Once as Chase the criminal, and once as Chase the cop, and it's actually never made clear as to whether or not Blackwell can see through your disguise or not. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he could. He is pretty smart, but at the same time he never mentions or gives any indication that he knows it's you. But then again, he might just be playing along to get you to trust him a bit more. You get to learn a bit of his personality, and he seems like a pretty nice guy. He's essentially a bit of an eccentric millionaire who seems like he's put the past behind him, rather calm and just dealing with, I don't know, rich people stuff, whatever it is. Also, I love when he points out that Dunby sleeps during work hours. It is so hilarious. The game also does a really good job of building up him being the bad guy. He does a bunch of suspicious things, but with the tone of the game, you really just think that it's a joke that they threw him, but it turns out he actually is the bad guy. And I haven't even gotten into his backstory yet. Basically, the reason why this guy turned evil was because he wanted to build an apartment block with a shopping mall in Bluebell National Park, which, by the way, how can you build something like that in a national park? But his proposal got shot down when they found a rare squirrel that lived there. However, by this point he already built Blackwell Bridge, and it seemed like he had given up on building things. But instead, he just went crazy and vowed the rest of his life to destroying Lego City. He built his own empire on the moon, and then with his rocket tried to burn Lego City to a crisp, but Chase was able to stop him. Heck, in the final battle, you can hear his voice on the intercom after he betrayed Rex and left you both to die. He mentions how he's going to build his empire somewhere else and destroy Lego City. You also hear that he actually betrayed his entire crew and fled the ship when it was about to crash in the only escape pod. Overall, Forrest Blackwell was a likable character before you found out he was a villain, a menacing antagonist after you found out he was a villain, and even then, they did a pretty good job of hiding the fact that he was a villain. Except for right here. I mean, it shows his full outfit that he always wears, it shows his mustache when it zooms in on his face, and despite the fact that the pitch is changed, he has a strong accent so you can clearly tell that it's him. But this is pretty far in the game, so it doesn't really matter. The Blob games are kind of a mixed bag for me. They have some good qualities to them and some bad qualities to them. However, by far the best part of these games is the bad guys. Comrade Black and the INKT Corporation. Their goal here is to suck all the color out of Radia. Do they really have a reason for this? I don't know, but I don't care. These guys are awesome. I guess I'll just start with the regular Inkies. Essentially, these guys are hilarious. If you want to know, they're kind of like the Raving Rabbids in a way, but they're a lot more organized, actually know what they're doing, and don't spend their time laughing over toilet humor. They have a lot of different varieties of soldiers to take down, all of which being pretty unique. Seriously, in the cutscenes, these guys shell out some serious laughs. One thing that's kind of creepy about INKT is that they kind of are reminiscent of real-world dictatorships. I mean, taking over an area, ruining the lives of its inhabitants. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too far into this, but it is kind of creepy. But it's all done in a pretty funny way, so it's not that bad. Oh, and doing human experiments on their own people. Yeah, but even still, these guys are really enjoyable. Now I should probably talk about my favorite aspect of INKT, their leader, Comrade Black. In case you guys haven't noticed by now, he's been the number transition in this video as well as always in my intro and on my channel banner. He sorta has the same quirky demeanor as his underlings, but he is also bossy, you know, being the big guy in charge, and also has some pretty evil moments. After you defeat him in the original Blob, it seems like he's done, but no, he comes back into Blob 2. First off, disguising himself as a cult leader of all things. And of course, brainwashing them to hate Blob. I honestly don't know which of the things he did was worse, this or what he did to the Radians in the original game. Seriously, in Blob 2, he actually has a lot of sinister, evil, intimidating moments, as well as a lot of funny, goofy ones as well, which isn't really an easy balance to maintain, but he does it really well. Heck, in Blob 2, he even managed to kidnap all the members of the Underground and imprison him in his prison zoo for all the INKT Corporation members to laugh at. He's a really awesome and intimidating evil character, as well as just being funny and goofy at the same time. He always seems to be one step ahead of you, and it's really cool. And while I still really hate the fight with him in the first game, I will have to say, I really like the fight with him in the second game, and it's one of my personal favorite final bosses I fought in a video game. Overall, the INKT Corporation are really entertaining villains and probably the best part of the Blob games. Although I do have to wonder why they're created in a factory. I don't know, it just seems kinda weird. Also, if there ever is a Blob 3, one thing I think would be cool is to learn more about the INKT Corporation. I don't know, maybe have a boss fight for each of the advisors that Comrade Black has in that one cutscene. I don't know, I think it might be cool. For those of you who've seen top 10 Mario villains, you would know that I put Fawful at number 1, and to be honest, he's a great villain and still is. There's just so much to like about this guy. However, despite all this, now that I think about it, there is one more Mario villain who I feel is more deserving of this list than Fawful. And that villain would have to be Dimentio. Dimentio is the one who's pulling the strings all throughout the game in Super Paper Mario, and is really a good villain. I mean, despite the fact that this guy works for Count Bleck, it's clear that he's not as loyal to him as everyone else. I mean, he eavesdrops on the Count's private conversations and convinced both Mimi and Mr. L to specifically disobey the Count's orders. Late in the game, it's actually revealed that Dimentio this whole time has been trying to go against Count Bleck, because Count Bleck was trying to destroy all the worlds, and Dimentio's been piggybacking off that plan, but he's gonna kill the Count and then create a bunch of perfect new worlds. Presumably a bunch of worlds where he's a god or something, and invites Mario and Luigi to join in, although it is kind of a rigged deal because he mind controls you if you accept. And it turns out that throughout the game, Mr. L actually has been helping you out on your journey, whether it be him killing Mr. L behind the scenes or sending you to the underwear so you can retrieve the pure heart. The interesting thing about Dimentio is that his boss fights are actually pretty easy, but here's the neat part about it. Typically, when a boss fight is easy by the standards of the game, it makes the villain look pretty weak. However, with Dimentio, it actually makes him look smart. I mean, really think about it. He's not trying to kill you. If he killed you, it would completely screw up his plan. He's just trying to make it look like to the Count that he's giving an effort, but in reality, he wants you to win. Another thing I should mention is that his scene right before the final battle is just plain awesome. Essentially being, in his own words, his moment of him revealing everything, and just so much happens. It's really cool. Not to mention the awesome music that I use for my intro theme in every video. Overall, Dimentio's an awesome villain. He has an amazing plan that he pulls off perfectly, an entertaining personality, and just like with Girahim, every scene he's in is a joy to watch. Oh, Hades. Come on, admit it, guys. If you've played Uprising, there is no way you could possibly forget this guy. Well, he is the main villain, but still, this guy is amazing. First, I think I should start with the famous way that this guy got introduced. He literally tears through the credits of the game and comes in just to tell you that he, in fact, is the real villain, and the game's not even close to being over yet. From this point forward, he always shows up in the levels just to mess with you all the time. I mean, can anyone really forget the famous scene where he tells the gang what he's going to do if he finds the wish seed?
See this poor child? Both of her parents are dead. Oh, there was an unfortunate accident. If you know what I mean. Think of anything more joyous than a family reunion. Then after that, they'd strike it rich. Like rolling in dough rich. And then we'd slap crowns on all of them and make them royalty. And that's the general gist of my wish. Pretty noble, and not at all evil, right?
I'm sorry if that clip went on for too long, I just really needed an example to show of how funny this guy is. Hades' wish always seems to be people's favorite scene with Hades, however my personal favorite moment from him is when you're in his stomach and he actually tries to justify eating souls to Pit. It's really funny. It's kinda hard to describe how funny Hades is, but he just is. He goes through the game with a really nonchalant and hilarious attitude. Probably because, unlike all the other villains on this list, he's not really pursuing some sort of evil goal. He really has everything he wants already. He just likes to mess with you. He's the ultimate troll, and he is really funny. I mean, heck, when you show up at the end of the game to kill him, for about 90% of the fight, he acts like nothing's going on, like it's not a big deal that you showed up to end his reign of terror. Speaking of 90%, I know for about 90% of this entry I've really just been saying how funny Hades is, but he really is. I mean, if you really want to get a good idea of how funny he is, just look up some of his moments online, or better yet, buy Kid Icarus Uprising yourself and play it. Oh my god, GLaDOS. I honestly, right from when I came up with the idea for this list, I knew GLaDOS had to be number one. Even before I played Portal, I knew GLaDOS had to be number one. So what does GLaDOS do? Well, in the original Portal, she served as a computer sort of watching over you while you did your tests, and she always talked to you before and after the test. And she said sort of computer stuff, but you could tell that she was trying to make you hurt inside, with some of them being pretty insulting. However, in Portal 2, after Wheatley accidentally revived her, she ended up having more of a personality. Well, more of a human personality, that is. She has a really good voice, and all it is her being really passive-aggressive and really hating you. Well, you did kill her, it's only fair.
Well done. Here come the test results. You are a horrible person. That's what it says. A horrible person. We weren't even testing for that.
Heck, after Wheatley turns on you later in the game and turns GLaDOS into a potato, she decides to side with you in order to help defeat Wheatley. At the end of the game, after you help defeat Wheatley, GLaDOS saves your life from the horrible vacuum of space, and because you helped her defeat Wheatley, and that she realized to her own horror that she actually has a conscience, she decides to let you go. Overall, GLaDOS is my favorite villain in any video game. She's funny, sinister, hilarious, learns her lesson, and is overall a great villain. I am Defossilizer, and while I like GLaDOS and Wheatley about equally, I do like GLaDOS better as a villain.